G'day! In today's video, I'm just having a little bit of a rant and rave about ray tracing and how much Nvidia seems to be pushing ray tracing with their RTX series, or at least so they have been since the 2000 series, the initial launch of the RTX models. I find that when the RTX was first launched, there was the 2060, which was the base model RTX card that offered ray tracing support on a hardware level. And with that, the performance of most of the games that were available at the time, which was very little, all I can really remember was Tomb Raider and Battlefield 5. And when you enabled it on the base level RTX graphics card, the performance of that was extremely poor, to the point of, why am I even bothering to play this when I'm getting sub 60 FPS? Granted, I might be a high FPS pig, where I just want my FPS to be good, smooth, and I'd love a smooth experience on a game. I don't want to sit there and have it dip down below what my refresh of my monitor is. On my current laptop it's 240 FPS, but I'll settle for 120. Anything below 120, or even below 30 on some of these games, is just atrocious. The dilemma that I've got there is, we've now had 2000, 3000, 4000, and of which the performance of those on those various games, unless you're using frame generation, aka DLSS, you're really not getting that much of a better experience. As time goes on, if you're playing at 1080 resolution and a 60Hz monitor and enable ray tracing, on pretty much the 4060, you're probably going to have a good time, as it's not going to really get much past that. But being that we're in 2023, people have high refresh monitors, people have higher resolution monitors, and you're sitting there with a 2K monitor that can do 140 or 165 FPS. Your 4060 is not going to cut it doing ray tracing at 2K with even potentially with DLSS enabled frame generation. You may get a smooth experience, but I always find it always looks subpar to me. And also, the amount of games that actually support ray tracing is still relatively low. Rasterization, the older technology of game graphics rendering, has been around now since essentially the dawn of 3D gaming, and that has been perfected to the point that they can almost fake the effects of ray tracing. Granted, I do agree, ray tracing does look very nice when used well, especially when used on older games to create real-time lighting. Looks great, but it's at the expense of being able to perform it and play it at a smooth frame rate. I'm happy to trade off visual quality for fidelity, where a smooth game is way better for me to play at a lower texture, lower graphical setting than a higher graphics game. Even if it's a single player game, I'd much rather it be constantly smooth than dipping down into a ridiculous frame rate. Well, that leads us to where we are we're now the third generation of ray traced graphics cards on the Nvidia side, and the performance still isn't overly that great. Especially when you factor in, if you're buying something like a 4080, you're going to be probably using a 4K monitor. And even then, ray tracing performance still isn't massively perfect. Unless it's some esport games, you can play perfectly well with an extremely high-end ray tracing card. But for me, I see ray tracing is still probably going to be about another 5 to 10 years away before it starts getting rolled out at a decent performance on most mid-range hardware. So I'm probably looking almost 10 years from now. In 10 years' time, we're probably sitting there with a mid-range graphics card. Mid-range, I say mid-range, when I say mid-range, I think $300 Australian. In reality, in 5-10 years' time, the mid-range graphics card is probably going to be $800 Australian. So an increase of at least 200% there. Anyway, that's a bit of a future prediction. But right now, ray tracing is still not for me. Very little games that I play still utilize it. Granted, at the moment, the 2 games that I'm currently playing, or 3 games if we put it that way. 1, BattleBit. Requires nothing to run it. I would be curious to see if they integrated ray tracing in it, being it's such a potato game. Granted, it'll probably take a performance hit like Minecraft does with ray tracing. 2, I'm playing Dave the Diver. Something quick, simple, don't have to worry about much, just play. And number 3, I've just reinstalled Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance on PC, and I've enabled the third person mod on there for a fresh perspective while playing the game. So my games aren't exactly high demanding games, Probably the most highest demanding game I will be playing in the recent future will be Doom Eternal. That does interest me. I like the first Doom 2016. I'm yet to play the sequel, so I'll probably check that out at some stage. But then from what I've been seeing of that, it's extremely well optimized and seems to run well even with ray tracing enabled. So, granted, some people do spend and buy something like a 4090 and then they play Dave the Diver. So sometimes hardware doesn't necessarily restrict what you're going to play, nor does it curate what you're going to play. Anyway, that's my rant and rave. Ray tracing ain't going to be good for a while. Still not going to be good. Bye.